I chose this picture as I thought, due to the content of this chapter, it was fitting, brothers and sisters. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for more artwork like this. Take it easy, nation. One Piece, Chapter 77, The First Step Toward a Dream. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the tantalizing and epic tale of One Piece. Our last chapter left us with Nojiko, Nami's stepsister or half-sister, coming out to the beach, or to basically to where Luffy and the gang are, and saying, hey, listen, I'll tell you the whole story about Nami and her deal, but you guys, you have to leave here. You know, that's what I need you to do. So that's how the chapter ended. That's where it begins. And it starts out, and Luffy's basically just like, I don't really care about her past. Doesn't matter to me. Don't want to hear about it. I'm going to go for a walk. And Nojiko's like, what the hell? What's his deal, you know? And Zoro goes, I don't know. He's quirky, but don't worry. We'll sit and listen to your story. So he leans up against a tree, and he immediately starts falling asleep and passes out. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're going to listen to me by falling asleep? You said you were going to listen. So... So Usopp goes and he says, I'd like to hear her story. And then Sanji goes, oh, me too. Because, of course, he thinks Nojiko is just so pretty because it's Nami's sister and he's in love with Nami, Mr. Ladies Man over there. So Nojiko, we presume, is going to go to start to tell them the story of the background of what's happened in her past, their upbringing or what have you, how we got to this point. It then goes and flashes back to her house, the house that her and Nami, grew up in back outside of Cocoa Village. Nami has awoken from her little nap, and she's like, "Oh, geez, I must have dozed off," And she winds up seeing a basket of tangerines, and that reminds her of to go into this flashback, and we find out about her past anyway. And we presume it's the same story that's probably being told by Nojiko anyway. And the story is actually pretty good. I've been wondering about Nami and what her deal is for a while now, and I now have some better insight into it. I don't have the whole picture, but I do have some of it. So Nami goes into this flashback, and she says, Bell-Mère. And we find out very quickly that Bell-Mère was their not their birth mother, but their orphan mother, the mother that adopted them. And she ran this tangerine farm or tangerine grove, and they were very poor, though, at least in this part of the flashback they were. And mainly because Bell-Mère is this single mother raising two daughters, and her only means of income is this tangerine grove or tangerine farm. And apparently there's an abundance of those anyway on the island, so it isn't like they're selling very well anyway. So we find out within the first couple of pages just a little bit about the relationship between the three of them. Nojiko is a little bit more level-headed. She's 2 years older than Nami, and in this particular flashback, it's about 8 years ago. So we presume right around the time that Arlong's pirates came there. So, but they haven't come yet at this point. And so we find out that Nojiko is 2 years older than Nami. And Nami's kind of, just the real hot-headed one. It starts out where she gets caught by Mr. Genzo stealing a book from a bookstore in Cocoa Village. And he's like, you can't steal and blah, blah, blah. And he's trying to teach her a lesson, She's like, but I didn't have the money to pay for it. We're poor, but she really likes books, right? So he takes her back to Bell-Mère and says, listen, you gotta keep a leash on her, And Bell-Mère kind of flirts with him and says, it's okay, and you paid for the book, right? And and he's like, it's not the point. The kid is becoming a bad kid. She's stealing things. This is not right. And Bell-Mère kind of flirts with him a little bit and says, it's okay, don't worry, I'll pay you back later in kisses, So he's kind of getting all purple with rage and winds up walking off. And Bell-Mère says, why didn't you just tell me? We could have bought the book. And Nami says, well, we're poor. We don't have much money. We don't have money for books and things like that. And she says, listen, I've got a little stash of money. I could have bought you a book. And that's when she explains about the tangerine groves. And I know I'm going pretty in depth on this, but honestly, that's why I'm breaking down chapter to chapter all the way through. Because whether you're watching this now or 6 months from now or a year from now, or I go back and watch it, or somebody who's new to the series watches it, you can get a good understanding of all the intricacies of this just wonderfully woven tale, So we find out about the tangerine groves, and that's why they're poor. We have a little bit of fighting go on between Nojiko and Nami, but prior to that, Nami sits down and she draws this map, and we presume it's the map that she has now. It's her first map that she drew. She also talks to her orphan mother, Bell-Mère, and she's like, "You have such an interest in that." And she goes, "Yeah, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be a navigator. I'm going to draw maps. I'm going to draw the first map of the entire world, right?" And she's like, "Oh, that's such a great goal, and this is a great start." She drew her first map. So we're presuming that's why that's important to her. That was her first map that she drew. And this is how it was her dream to become this navigator, this person who knows where the hell she's going, unlike Luffy, who's just kind of confused. So then we have some fighting amongst Nojiko and Nami, and it's about some hand-me-down clothes that Nami is getting from Nojiko. And Nojiko's like, "You should just be happy to have some stuff." And she's like, "Screw you, we're not even real sisters, we're not blood." And that's what the fight boils down to. And Bell-Mère just backhands her, and says, and she gets really pissed, and we wonder why. And she says, at the time we wonder why, and she says, "You two, even though you're not blood sisters, it doesn't matter. You still are sisters. What the hell does it matter if you have the same blood? You don't treat each other like that." So so Nami says something to the effect of, "You know what? It would have been better if I was just born into a rich family. If you didn't have us, you could eat," because Bell-Mère has not been eating. She's just eating tangerines. Says she's on a diet, but ultimately it's because they don't have enough money to eat. And all the hand-me-down clothes and everything else, they're very poor. So Nami basically says it'd be better if we just weren't here, because then we wouldn't be a burden on you. You could be free. There's a big argument between the two, and and Bell-Mère tells her, "Hey, listen, you think you can do better somewhere else? Get the fuck out, right?" So Nami says, "Okay," and she leaves and slams the door behind her, and she goes running off. And Bell-Mère goes and calms down, and Nojiko says, she didn't really mean it. She just gets upset, and she goes, "I know, you're always the level-headed one." She goes, "Would you please do me a favor and go bring your sister back?" So it then goes and it flashes to the village, right? And we see her, she went to Genzo's house, and she's basically explaining, everything, and he's kind of laughing it off. He goes, "Oh, okay, so you were so angry that you left from your house on the outskirts of the village and made it here to the whole center of town to run away, right?" And he's like, and she's like, "Oh, blah, blah," and she's talking about what happened, and he's like, "And now you're understanding the consequences of your actions. Bell-Mère is now being looked upon and disliked by everybody in the village because, or at least that's what Nami thinks, because of, they know that Nami is always stealing shit and getting into trouble, right?" So he's like, "Now you're understanding the consequences of your actions." He goes, "You know what? It's funny because Bell-Mère, everybody kind of didn't have much respect for her until she left the island, and then came back a fighting pirate." And everybody's like, "What?" Like the seasoned pirate, And he goes, "Yeah," and he goes into a flashback within the flashback, right? And he says, basically what happened is she just showed up here one day, like during a storm or whatever, carrying both you and your sister. You were just a baby. Your sister was 3 years old. And you see this flashback, and she's like, "They need medical attention. They've got high fevers, this and that, So Nami's like, "Well, wait, I thought I was found under a bridge or something like that." And he said, "That's just the story she told you. What happened is she was left on the battlefield, okay? She was a pirate of some kind of pirate crew, and she was basically left on the battlefield, maybe presumed to be dead. And she was just laying there, bloodied and beaten, just about to die, right? To give up and die. And this is the part that I like about the story, and then especially because I have kids. And then she went and she saw Nojiko, who was 3 years old at the time, carrying her 1-year-old sister in her arms, which would obviously be Nami, and she was just kind of wandering around and just sort of like laughing. And she was like thinking and smiling. She was thinking, God, she doesn't understand. She's a child. She has that childlike mentality of the world is my oyster and doesn't know about war and evil and death and greed and all the things that come with life as you get older and you learn about corrupt governments and corrupt people and murderers and rapists, right? And these kids are just pure, And what it did is it gave her the will to pick her shit up off the ground, pick herself up, and to live, to move on, to live. So she wound up, so they have this bond is basically the point of what he's saying. Those three have this inseparable bond. We can only assume that maybe they are real sisters, Nojiko and Nami. I mean, Nojiko was carrying this baby, right? Or maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just, acquaintances in the village and she just saw her and she's a little kid. Whatever the case is, their bond is deeper, in my opinion, than some blood bonds because of what they've been through together. The kids gave her, Bell-Mère, the will to get up and to fight and to move forward with life, right? And then, of course, the kids were rescued by Bell-Mère and raised by her, and even though she had to suffer in some poverty and everything else, to her it wasn't suffering. It was they love each other. So that's what I liked about the story. It was very touching. So he comes out of the flashback over there, and then all of a sudden we get a thing where, they kind of open the door, and she's thinking, okay, and it's Nojiko, right? And Nojiko's like, come on, we got to come back, Bell-Mère wants us back, and so Nami's about getting ready to go, and all of a sudden we get some kids from the village running in. Oh my God, the pirates are coming! The pirates are coming! And you kind of get flashbacks to Usopp and what he used to do, but they're like, Arlong's pirates, they're coming! And then they go and they show the ships. This was right at the crest of when Arlong, right at the beginning of when Arlong came and decided to oppress and take over this island, these villages. So they show his ship, which just looks really badass, just kind of coming in, and they're like, oh my God, and Genzo's like, listen, I need you two to go hide in the forest, right? Just hide in the forest, get the hell away from here, right? And they're like, yeah, but Bell-Mère, she's back at the house. And he's like, don't worry about her, just go in the forest. And he knows the shit's going to go down, right? So then we go in the final, scene of the chapter, or whatever you want to call it. We wind up seeing, seeing Arlong, who gets out of the ship, and Arlong's just like, all big and badass, and he's just like, I've come to take over this village, and as of right now, this moment, this village is under my control, and you're just like, oh, fuck. So this is showing us the background of Nami, the backdrop. I'm sure we'll get more in the next chapter, but it was really cool, in my opinion, because it gave us some insight into Nami, who, to tell you the truth, is probably my favorite character thus far, only because of the fact that she sort of has this broken sort of background, and upbringing, but at the same time, like, even though she does the wrong things, she does them for the right reason, and she has a heart, but she has trouble showing it. And I think she's the most complex character so far, from what's been revealed thus far through 75, 76 chapters. So let me know what you think, Nation, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button, if you think I deserve it. And then, of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
As always, thanks for watching, brothers and sisters. And remember, join the Nerd Nation. It's the right thing to do. Trust me. Tell them Jim sent you.